Thank you everybody for attending our webinar today. My name is Michelle with the TribalHub team, and I'm excited to be here as your webinar host as we begin our webinar titled IT Workflows, Improving Your Operational and Service Management. We're joined today by Bill Travitz of Arctic IT. Bill serves as our Director of Tribal Business for Arctic, and he is actually the former Director of the Office of Information Technology at the Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians, where he led a complete digital transformation effort from fully on-prem to a cloud-based zero trust architecture. Bill is a great friend of TribalHub, so it's great to see you on here today, Bill. Joining Bill is Nikhil, the Regional Sales Director for ServiceNow. Nikhil leads the citizen service team supporting government entities, including tribes. He also leads the deployment of solutions that modernize and digitize business processes, making services across organizations more transparent and effective for tribes and their members. Today's session will be recorded, and tomorrow you'll receive an email with a link to the video. You can share that out to any of your team who maybe couldn't make it today. You can also watch it again and, like I said, share it. It will also be available on our website at tribalwise.com. While you are listening to today's presentation, just keep in mind a couple of these key takeaways and learning objectives, and make sure you use the chat box for any questions you might have or that Q&A feature. We are going to hold all the questions till the end of the presentation, so as soon as the presentation wraps, we'll take care of all those questions for you. We do host webinars quite frequently, sometimes twice a week, so be sure to look at our calendar, which is on tribalwise.com, for a list of upcoming session details. And if you are not yet registered, there's still time to make our annual conference, which is in Reno in just a couple weeks. So you can find more information at tribalnetconference.com. Now, with that being said, Bill, I'm going to turn this presentation over to you.
Thank you, Michelle. It's good to see you again, and great to be here. Thanks to everybody who's attending out there. We're here to talk about IT workflows. I am currently, as Michelle said, working with Arctic IT. I'm a previous customer of ServiceNow when I was in my prior role. And you probably all know me from the Tribal ISAC and some presentations that I've done at Cybersecurity Summit and other things. So for those of you out there who know me, hey, everybody, good to be back. And I'm going to go ahead and just sort of leap into the partnership side of it. So Arctic IT is currently a partner of ServiceNow, and we're looking at being able to leverage our experience in the tribal space. So these are just a couple of things. Arctic has been in the tribal space for 15 years, and many of you are maybe Arctic IT customers. So we're actually really excited to be able to join with ServiceNow as a potential product offering that we can help tribes maximize workflows. And just to give you, that's one of our standard stock slides. That's locations where Arctic has a footprint. And what we're really here to talk about is how we use ServiceNow. So we're developing this partnership with ServiceNow, and one of the things that we're going to do in this webinar is sort of we call it a voice of the customer, but basically a use case scenario with how the Eastern Band used ServiceNow to improve workflows and improve service delivery efficiency. So that'll be coming after Nick does a brief bit of a presentation. And so this particular model here that you see, we're going to be focused over on where the two stars are: IT operations management and IT service management. So I'm not going to talk a whole lot more on this, and I'm going to go ahead and just turn it over to Nikhil, who's going to do an introduction about what ServiceNow is and does, and then we can launch into the use case. Nikhil?
Perfect, Bill. Thanks. That's a fantastic lead into ServiceNow. And before we get too far, as you mentioned, I recognize that we may have people on today's webinar that are not familiar with us. So for those that don't know, ServiceNow is a software as a service or SaaS offering that has one mission in mind. We are here to change the way people work. Now, technology plays a large role in our personal lives as consumers. Whether you're ordering something from Amazon, an Uber, a pizza, or even accessing bank information from an app on your phone, the experience matters. the more convenient and efficient your experience, the more likely you will continue to use that service offering. The expectations we have as consumers in our personal world are not always translated into our professional world. We tend to have lower expectations for things we need at work. We might be willing to email someone and wait for a response or follow an outdated process because that's the way it's always been done. But we are really in a time of technology modernization, and ServiceNow specifically wants to help change the way people work through the automation our platform provides. Now, behind every business outcome is a process that drives the overall experience. The process that an organization has is a direct reflection of the experience its customers and employees have. The connection between people, process, and technology is really important to the experience. As you think about your own experiences as a customer of some product or service, or even your experience as an employee, whenever you request or need something, the experience you have in getting that request fulfilled is directly tied to how easy or complex that process is. So many organizations think of experiences and processes as different things, but they are directly connected. And at ServiceNow, we aim to digitize and enhance those processes by connecting and automating them so that work flows. Some organizations are still dealing with analog or paper processes, or using spreadsheets to manage things that spreadsheets were never intended for. When we take these processes and make them better, we've inherently created better experiences for our consumers who can range from the employee to a tribal member. And in doing so, we are increasing the value and improving experiences for those that work within an organization or with an organization. It's our employees, but also anyone that works with an organization, right? Your partners, customers, tribal members. And ServiceNow aims to bring businesses into this world of work that's a digital state. And when you get more agility and speed around these processes, optimizing them across all these different systems, the results for your employees, customers, and tribal members are incredible experiences. Now, ServiceNow has too many platform capabilities and products to go over in one webinar. So before we have the pleasure of hearing about Bill's journey with our technology, I wanted to really just expand on the idea of creating experiences for end users. Whether your end users are employees, customers, tribal members, or even a combination of all of them, there is an out-of-the-box experience that's available within ServiceNow. So depending on your business need, these experiences and their related workflows can be summarized here at the top of this slide. We have pre-built workflows for your customer, for your employee, your tribal member, and really where it started for us at ServiceNow across all of your technology service operations. So if you've heard of us, you probably know ServiceNow as ticketing software or service or help desk software. But as you can see on this slide, we provide so much more for an organization. Now, as much as I love talking about words on a slide and showing how ServiceNow is a single unifying platform, I like showing it even more. So Bill, if it's okay with you, I'm going to go off script here and show a live demo of the ServiceNow platform.
Absolutely.
So I know you're going to be talking about the IT workflow side. So I'm going to show the experience from my persona, and this is a live environment, but me as an employee of ServiceNow, and show you how I access services from my organization. What you're looking at here is what we call the Employee Service Center. And really, this is just a web portal that is designed for employees. Here, I can access almost every service available to me as an employee. I can also get updates on where I am. The goal of this page is to make it easy for your employee to get updates and access things they need from the organization. I have my to-do list here. Please don't judge me for things that are overdue. I have latest news. So being connected to our internal social media page, I have updates regularly. As an employee, ServiceNow encourages continual learning and growth. So we have a site for that. I am a hiring manager here, so I have things to help me with recruiting, hiring, and onboarding new employees. And then as you scroll down a little bit more, just announcements that are important to the organization, whether it's our impact from a global perspective, our diversity page, or my favorite, our next holiday that we're going to be off. All of that information is provided on this homepage or the Employee Service Center page. I'm going to just do a simple workflow here. I think this is something that's common to most folks, but I'm going to request something from my IT department. And so from this page, I'm simply going to go to this top part, which is make a request. And I'm going to make a request that most of us have probably had to do this over the last 2 years, but I'm going to request a wireless mouse. Well, Bill, you should have stopped me. I ran the risk of doing a live demo. We'll come back to this as soon as this loads. But once that request has been made, I make a request from here for a wireless mouse. And on this same platform, I can access the status of that request. And behind the scenes, there's actually going to be an IT person that picks up that request and starts to work on it. And so this is all I wanted to do, was just show a quick example of what the ServiceNow platform looks like. And no matter how good this technology looks or how good a vendor may claim to be on paper, the greatest technology still requires good people and processes to be successful. I like to refer to this formula of success as the triangle offense. The triangle offense is really a strong partnership between the customer, which is anyone on the phone here, a vendor, which could be ServiceNow, and a strong partner that really understands how to connect both. And in today's case, that's Arctic IT. Bill, you ran the triangle offense to perfection as an IT leader. So I'd love to bring you back here to talk about your journey with ServiceNow. So going back to when you led a tribal IT organization, you were faced with a challenge that required a modern solution. Can you first talk about why you needed to modernize workflows within your IT department?
Thanks, Nikhil. Many of you already are aware through previous things that I've done through TribalHub that the Eastern Band of Cherokee was ransomed not long into my tenure there, which effectively put us out of service. And part of that that journey was completely re-architecting into the Microsoft Azure cloud. So as we did that, we went from a completely on-premises operation into a modern workplace using M365 and all the advanced tools, building out on top of a zero trust architecture. One of the things that we lost during the ransom and didn't have much success in recovering was our trouble ticket management system, or what we call ITSM, IT Service Management, which is the use case for which we went to ServiceNow. So there were several factors in that. The first and most important factor was timing. We actually had our Microsoft partners. We had an embedded engineer with us for almost 2 years as we re-architected into Zero Trust. But they made the recommendation for ServiceNow. ServiceNow fit the bill of a model that we had been developing by which we evaluated software as a service. So let me back up for a second. The decision when we decided to go fully into the cloud was made based upon the idea that we were also going to go software as a service everywhere we could. But software as a service is not always created equal. So security and zero trust underlying everything that we did, we had to basically find a product that was not only modern, did way more than what our existing system did. It was a Linux-based system, which we, I think, might have gotten for free. I don't remember. But anyway, compared with the capabilities that we now have, or they now have in ServiceNow, it was not a non-player. So as part of that process, we developed a security evaluation tool by which we would measure SaaS things. And that was in early development. It covers everything from their architecture, how did they do their security, how's their API calls, what are their software engineering practices internally, things of that nature. And so ServiceNow in those early days fit that bill. And so we went full on and we were able to leverage CARES Act funding to do it as part of the mobile workforce initiative that we were doing. So that was the circumstances, to answer your question, Nikhil, under which we entered into this. It was out of need, and it was out of a need to do it as software as a service.
Yeah, that's helpful context. We typically talk about all the great things that happen with a deployment of a technology such as ServiceNow, but I'm going to change that question a little bit for you. What are some of the challenges that you faced during the implementation, some of those learning lessons?
The big thing about ServiceNow is we knew, if you look at the Gartner Magic Quadrant, it is the industry leader in terms of feature sets, and with features comes complexity, right? So one of the things that we recognized early on was that we needed a partner to be able to help us build out the workflows so that we could go at this with a crawl, walk, run approach. And we started by crawling, and the partner was incredibly important to be able to help us. We didn't have the internal capability, and we certainly didn't have the bandwidth at the time, as we were doing a whole bunch of other things to rebuild our environment. But that challenge was answered by partnering with somebody who could come in and help us customize the workflows and really help us focus in on the things that were most important to the Eastern Band. There's a lot of buttons you can push, and there's a lot of whistles that you can add at a later time. But the day-to-day was, we needed to improve our service to our customers, be able to know where we were, and then have some of the operations management capabilities that would allow us to go out and inventory assets on the network, be able to automatically enable and disable things. Although we hadn't quite gotten to that point, as far as, having it reach into our tenant and do those things. That's a tall order to climb for most tribes, being able to reach into their sovereign space, even no matter how secure the API interfaces are. So maybe that answered the question, Nikhil. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I mean, there were a lot of challenges I recall that you faced, and that triangle offense, I think, that we referenced earlier was important. I think you did a great job as a leader of ensuring the partner that you brought in filled a particular gap that you needed from a skill perspective. They helped take a technology like ServiceNow and connect it to the specific needs of your organization. And I think how you orchestrated across those different areas to meet some of the challenges and some of the unique challenges from a security perspective that you were faced with was imperative to the ultimate success of the project. So can you talk a little bit about the end result of the implementation?
Yes. So we actually selected two modules. The most important and first one that we implemented was IT service management. So you can think of that as your classic trouble ticket management system, but with a whole lot more. We basically, there was a couple of things that we built out. One of them was obviously doing trouble tickets and then putting up a customer portal so that either via email or going to this portal, we could have, we were also in the middle of COVID when all this was going on. So our workforce was moving to an entirely mobile model. So to have that web portal there to be able to enter tickets into our system and have us be able to respond was an incredibly important component. So that was part of our early implementation. Other things that we did was ITSM, IT Service Management, contains change management, which we never had a system. And our cyber insurance carrier and our auditors kept dinging us on the fact that we weren't doing change management internally. That's, keeping track of every little thing that gets changed. Well, we implemented that in ServiceNow. And the beauty of it was that it builds knowledge base for things that you put into your changes. So for example, when a fulfiller, which would be one of the service desk people, would look at a particular case, it would come up and pop up suggestions as to, oh, well, they just replaced the switch in that building. And those suggestions would then come up to our technicians who could make those choices. And that's one of the things that's in the walk and run phase to really fully develop that out, like things like chatbots that can help your customers answer their own questions without having to actually make a call. Those would have been later things. Other things that we put into place, change management was one of the big ones that we never had. Of course, all the ticketing kinds of stuff and the fulfillment of those things. And then the second phase that we implemented was IT operations management, which is they call it the ITOM module. And with ITOM, that does a lot of the mechanics of the main thing that we set up was to be able to have it go out and scan our entire network and build an inventory of everything, switches, firewalls, endpoints, anything that was attached to the network anywhere. Those things get crawled, which was a bit of a challenge in the zero trust architecture. I had to be perfectly candid because of the microsegmentation that gets built in a zero trust architecture. So the whole thing about zero trust is you don't want people crawling east and west in your network. So that presented a bit of a challenge for us as well, so going back to the challenge phase.
That's fantastic. I mean, that was, the IT service management, the IT operations management that you mentioned allowed you to really modernize some of your IT operations. And I jotted a couple of notes, and every time you give an overview, I always learn a little something new. But that web portal made it easier. We go back to talking about the experience. The web portal made it easier for people to create tickets, request tickets, but how your agents worked those tickets, that experience also was easier as well. You talked about an improved experience for the technicians, recommendations or additional context that could be available of information that's out there that allowed people to resolve tickets quicker. Establishing strong change management, I think, is important, and that was a great place to start on our IT service management platform. And then using knowledge base in some of the other areas of the platform to do things like case deflection. Wherever you can empower an end user or a technician to solve an issue on their own, that's always the way to go, right? That's less tickets. So it's a great use case. It's one even that we still talk about here at ServiceNow, and I'm honored to be kind of sharing the floor with you as you talk about your journey with ServiceNow. So I appreciate that overview. I tried to summarize it as best I could. I've got one more question for you. What would you recommend to tribal nations that are interested in ServiceNow? Where do we start?
That's a good question, Nikhil. My experience with it was sort of forced upon us, but I think I've been talking to some of the tribes out there. In fact, I had a recent discussion with another one just before I got on this call about where this fits in their priority scheme. I think there's a broad spectrum of folks out there and sizes of tribes that are going to have different reasons why they might want to do this. And let me back up just a little bit and not directly answer your question. I think the real beauty of this product, from my perspective, was that it supports workflows first. And I had the capability to have my internal team be able to get trained up on this to build workflows, because it's a low code, no code environment, which is the way the world's going. It's true of Dynamics, it's true of ServiceNow. You're trying to basically make it so you don't have to go hire a C# programmer to be able to make changes to a workflow. You do it with a mouse and a mouse pointer. So those are the kinds of things that I see as real value. So to get back to the question that you asked me, how would you get started, or how would you proceed? I think it's really important to understand that a product as feature rich and as I will say well made, and that's my personal opinion about it. Its usability is great, its customizability is great, but you would really want to consider what mission are you trying to solve? Certainly service management is a great entry point, and it's the roots of ServiceNow. So you just really need to take a look at what are your end goals. And I think if you're one of the tribes that's out there now, that there's a growing group of you that are moving into cloud and zero trust architecture, this thing really dovetails beautifully into that space and preserves all the things that you want to preserve as far as zero trust. So I still don't think I've answered your question. How would you start? You could reach out. You can certainly reach out to any one of the partners that are out there. We'd prefer that you reach out to Arctic IT, of course. There's my shameless plug for the day. So Does that answer your
No,
question?
yeah, that's a great answer. I think identifying an area where you'd like to solve, there's, we pride ourselves here at ServiceNow about being low code, making it easy to use, but it's really about identifying the problems that need to be solved. Sometimes you're forced into it, such as your use case, but other times organizations are just looking for ways to do things better. From a ServiceNow perspective, I encourage anyone on the phone that wants to have an additional conversation to reach out to Arctic IT. From our perspective, there's the reason that we're all in on this partnership is we want to provide great outcomes to tribal entities. We have an entire team at ServiceNow that helps support. Arctic IT also has a ServiceNow team that they've created to support this as well. And I think back to that triangle offense, my shameless plug there, partnering together and with any of you on the phone today is where we'd like to start. So we appreciate everyone's time today. That's so far the content that we have. We'd like to, Michelle, if it's okay, open it up to any questions that may be out there from anyone on the webinar.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't have any questions from anybody at the moment, but I'm sure they'll come in. I will say though, actually just this week, I had a TribalHub member asking me about a ticketing system. So it's definitely something that, I think tribes are looking at and they're not really sure where to go, where to even start, like, you were talking about. So it's definitely something that tribes, like you said, are going to and are really looking for information, about where to start. So I think this is a great information on where tribes could start. Now, when you started working with ServiceNow, Bill, like how long did this whole everything that you did take? And I'm interested to hear about, how it was working with maybe like your tribal council general managers. A lot of times you see tribes have kind of some push and pull when that goes, and how you were able to navigate some of those pieces.
Well, on answering the tribal council question, there is nothing quite like a complete shutdown of your operations to make everybody suddenly realize just how important technology is. So because we were able to leverage grant funding, basically free money from the federal government during the COVID crisis, in this particular instance, there was no hill to climb on that one. It was basically get it done, get it back in operation. And this was a key component for us as the IT division to be able to effectively deliver service back to the customers. And believe me, when you're completely re-architecting, which includes everything such as rationalizing applications and things like that, the problems come fast and furious. So it was really a tool that we got to be able to better manage how we were doing things, and it fit beautifully into our architecture. And there's other modules I should mention that are out there that we might consider in the future. There's all sorts of other products, and we're really focused on ITSM today. But the idea that we could eventually maybe leverage something else in the product set was also an attractive thing.
Yeah, that's totally true. So a lot, depending on where tribes are coming at this, it could be different, or it could be a lot of different parallels. So yeah, it's really great. So I don't have any other questions that are popping up from anybody. Do you guys? Oh, I do have hold on, have a hand up. I'm not sure. Milton, I've never done this before, but I'm going to push the allow to talk button and see how that works. All right, Milton, are you on? Can you ask your question?
Yes.
Great.
By low code, no code, are you talking about, just to make a note, I'm the ServiceNow administrator for my tribal's casino. When you're talking about low code, no code, are you talking about using flows, or are you actually talking about using workflows?
Workflows. So I use that term relatively generically, Milton. It's implemented in different ways depending on what product you're looking at, but basically the idea that you don't have to go in and actually code HTML or code C code, C# to be able to make a piece of data have an action go against it and then be transformed into some other piece of useful information, or on an input screen and all of that. So within ServiceNow, or if you're thinking about Microsoft with Power Apps and Power BI, those are what I call low code, no code environments where you're able to do a lot of your workflow management with a mouse and say, select this from the pull down and point to where you want this and what you would have happen. You can certainly make it very complicated and put code in those processes, but the idea of where the industry is going is to try to empower the end user or the end user of the product to really be able to solve a need without having to wait for the next feature set to come out or the next thing that's on the product roadmap. So that's that. Hopefully that clarifies what I meant by that.
Yeah, sure. That does. Okay, thank you so much.
All right, so we had a couple more questions come in. The first one, is there a big learning curve for your IT users to use ServiceNow?
The answer to that is, if you hire a partner who goes through your workflow and really, with you hand in hand, understands what that workflow needs to look like, and then focuses on one of my directives to the partner was, what I don't want to have happen here, especially with the change management part of it, is I don't want so many fields that I got to fill out that it stifles adoption. The data that you get out of the system is only as good as the data that goes in, right? So it was really important to me to be able to make the workflows really hit what the goals were, and that involved a lot of back and forth between our IT team and the partners. As a result, and in answer to your question, it wasn't that hard to train people up on, because we had basically taken all the peripheral things that it can do and put them in the background, which is part of the beauty of the interface. So,
and I'll maybe add one thing to that, Bill, just from a ServiceNow perspective. We have a entire learning site. One thing that we have actually for free right now is our ServiceNow fundamentals course, along with the certification, is free through the end of October. So you can not only take the class, it's an on-demand class, so you could take it at your convenience, but you can take the test at the end of it and get certified on ServiceNow, the fundamentals course, for no cost until the end of October. I'll make sure to include that in a link that we send out afterwards.
And I would camp onto that a little bit, Nikhil. The service, in my experience, the ServiceNow documentation sets, support, and training are really good. So we didn't have to go back and rely on the partner to hold our hand once we got the workflows built the way we wanted them. So that's a great, to me, that as an IT director, that was a really important aspect of it. So just be aware that the support, from my perspective, was there, and so was the knowledge that you would need to make any modifications you might want to make.
All right, we got another question here, two-parter. How would you address in-house ownership of the ServiceNow platform? Were you able to build an individual to handle all of ServiceNow, or did you need to eventually build a team?
While I was still there, we did not do any internal training in terms of the workflow changes. Had I still been in the position, that would have been one of the things that would have been on my list, but it wouldn't have taken a team. That's the point of the low code, no code environment. It would really be somebody more in IT operations management who would be able to, identify what the need was and then be able to enable the features, but that can all be trained up internally. I had put in the budget for this coming fiscal year, and I've only been at Arctic IT this is my 9th week. So just to give you a framework there, but in that budget, I had put money in. There were several requests coming from our service desk manager about things that they wanted to enable, like chatbots and things like that. So I put some money in for the partner to come in and help us with those workflows, but it would be a matter of, training one person up, or, assigning that as a duty to, if you have got a software engineering group like we had at the EBCI, that could easily be trained into that group. So, and I think, honestly, that we spent so much time front loading it that in terms of the workflows, that we really didn't have, it wasn't one of those things that came up and said, oh my God, we've got a problem with the way ServiceNow is working, because that just wasn't the case.
All right, one last question I have here. How long would it take to deploy the ITSM module? Sorry.
I think our timeline from start to finish was with the reseller was somewhere on the order of 3 to 4 months, if you include acceptance testing and tweaking and all of that. And that was building out, that was customizing every workflow that we use, which, by the way, wasn't all of them. So
yeah, that's about average too. It can be quicker, could be longer depending on how complex, but we have several tribes that are live and in production with ServiceNow, and that's about the average time it takes for deployment. And I'll quickly just piggyback on the previous question. Depending on how much of the platform they're using, it could be a single platform owner, but as you grow use, as you support more areas in an organization, you typically start to see a team that gets built to support all those different things. So you can grow along with the platform, is what we've seen most tribes do.
And to add a little bit to that, we're talking about a very significant portion of ServiceNow in terms of what it does for IT service delivery and IT operations management, inventory management, IT business management, but that's only part of what the platform is able to do. You'll be able to grow your experience as you decide if you want to bring some of the other modules in. We had actually considered, one of the things that I had rolling around in the back of my brain was user provisioning was always a problem for us. And I'm sure many of you got these issues where you've got a bunch of people coming in, and depends on what department they work for, which security group you're going to put them in. We were actually considering building a user provisioning engine in ServiceNow, so that when human resources onboards somebody to CDOT, Cherokee Department of Transportation, or to the police department, or whatever service it happens to be, that stuff would go into a workflow that would auto provision those users. And the problem that would have solved for us was A, not making any mistakes by doing it manually, and B, the bigger problem is offboarding somebody. So when somebody separates from the tribe, we have, I'm sure others have had this, but there have been instances of users having accounts for a month and nobody ever told us that they left. So it's one of those things that you can actually empower the human resources department, who's in the know about that sort of thing, to actually just press a button and deprovision them.
That's a great one, Bill. I mean, the workflows related to HR always span outside of HR. You have IT that's helping fulfill. You might have facilities that has to set up an office. Onboarding and offboarding is one of the most common workflows that is put onto ServiceNow to improve, because it's that single platform that reaches on these different departments to make that process easier. So I'm glad you brought that up.
We had plenty of ideas for things we wanted to do with it.
All right, we just got another question in. And this is asking, can you configure different levels of approval based on dollar amount or other criteria?
Yes.
Yeah, short answer.
Yes. Let's give a short answer, because there's no customizations on ServiceNow. We call it configurations. That's just a configuration. You can configure approval workflows and what those triggers are to go to different people and all types of things. But that is all inherent and out of the box on the platform.
So another cool feature of the thing, the product within ITSM for us was that I'm not going to get the term right, so Nikhil, correct me if I've said this incorrectly, but it's the idea of a service catalog. So if I want to
That's
do a standard, I need a PC for this new employee, rather than filling out a form and then having that get printed or, routed via email, I can just enter in the details of it, and it provisions a ticket within the system, which then goes to the person who's going to be the asset manager in the organization. So there's lots of really nice things that you can put out there for the customer to get rid of some of your old paper processes that, have forms that have to go from one office to the other and get 27 signatures. And when you combine that with something like Adobe Sign, it can be a really powerful combination.
You got it right. Service catalog.
Thank you.
That 27 signatures made me laugh because I know sometimes that's absolutely true. All right, well, I don't think we have any other questions at the moment. I know we went through a lot of information here. I put out both of your emails in the chat. If anybody wants to reach out to them, to Bill or Nikhil directly, please feel free to. If at any time you want to and you lose your email, you can always get a hold of us here at TribalHub and we'll put you in contact with them. Anything else you guys want to wrap up with before we let everybody loose for the afternoon?
Just wanted to add that at this year's TribalNet, I will be presenting with the IT director of the Mohegan tribe, George Wood, at the conference, and invite everybody to come and join us there. Another thing I'd like to add is I've over the years while I was with the Eastern Band, and I spent a lot of time working with tribes and explaining the process of going to a zero trust architecture. And my leadership at Arctic has said, please continue to do that. So I make myself available to share the intricacies of an experience of going from a fully on-prem operation to a fully cloud-based operation, and what the advantages of zero trust architecture are in a modern world. And I get that not everybody gets the golden opportunity to go from A to B on that like we had. That was the one silver lining of the entire disaster that we had. Because you've got other processes to keep alive and business flows and things that are on legacy systems and all of that. But I'm willing to talk to anybody out there about that, and that's I offer that out to your TribalHub membership. So please reach out.
Awesome.
Yeah, and that's all I'll say as well is thank you for the opportunity, Bill. It was an honor to share the floor with you today, and thanks for sharing your story. ServiceNow will also be at TribalNet this year. We'll be with Arctic IT and look forward to meeting whoever's there in person. Thanks again for the time.
Yes, awesome. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great afternoon.